So this video is about the basics of the larynx, some basic points, the basic idea about larynx. So first of all, what is the extension of larynx? It is from the C3 vertebra to the lower border of C6. So C3 to lower border of C6 is the extent of the adult larynx. Now larynx is mobile in all direction, like anteroposterior, side to side, and obviously up down. So that is the thing. Every movement is possible in larynx, that you have to remember. Now some basic point about larynx. Larynx is called the sound box as it produces sound, made up of 9 cartilage, you all know, which is 3 paired and 3 unpaired. 3 paired cartilage and 3 unpaired cartilage. Who are the unpaired cartilage? One is leaf-like epiglottis, then thyroid, butterfly shaped, and that is the largest of all, and lastly a ring shaped cricoid. What you have to remember, this cricoid is a signet ring shaped, and it is the only cartilage in the respiratory tract which is a full ring, and so cricoid is the most common site for the stenosis, that you have to remember. As thyroid is a full ring, this is the most common site for the stenosis, cricoid cartilage. There are 3 paired cartilage, namely arytenoid, corniculate, and cuneiform. So these are the 3 paired cartilage. Now among them, some are hyaline and some are elastic cartilage. So you have to remember like ACTH, like this. So hyaline cartilage are arytenoid, cricoid, and thyroid. They are hyaline cartilage, and rest of all are elastic cartilage. But what you have to remember, the apex of arytenoid. The apex of arytenoid is also an example of elastic cartilage. So these are the thing: 9 cartilage, 3 paired, 3 unpaired. 3 unpaired are epiglottis, thyroid, and cricoid, and 3 paired are arytenoid, corniculate, and cuneiform. And cricoid is the only cartilage that is a full ring shaped. Now what is important, this corniculate cartilage is also known as cartilage of Santorini, and cuneiform cartilage is also known as cartilage of Risberg. So that is 2 points just you have to remember. So corniculate is Santorini, cuneiform is Risberg. Now this is the thyroid cartilage, and all know in male the angle of this 2 thyroid lamina is 90 degree, and in case of female it is slightly obtuse and it is 120 degree in case of female. So that is the thyroid angulation. In male it is 90 degree, and it is in female it is 120 degree. As male has some stiffness, those said it is known as Adam's apple. So we all know at least about this. Now what is important is there are some 2 spaces. There are 2 spaces in the in the larynx. One is pre-epiglottic space and another is para-epiglottic space. One is pre-epiglottic and another is para-epiglottic space. Now who is pre-epiglottic space? It is bounded anteriorly by thyroid, superiorly by hyoepiglottic ligament, and posteromedially by infrahyoid epiglottis and quadrangular membrane. So pre-epiglottic space is bounded anteriorly by thyroid and thyrohyoid membrane, superiorly by hyoepiglottic ligament, and posteromedially by quadrangular ligament. And the paraepiglottic space is another space that is not so important, but paraepiglottic base laterally it is bound by thyroid, medially by the ventricles, posteriorly by the pyriform sinus. But that you don't need to worry about that, but there are 2 spaces, pre and paraepiglottic spaces, and that's it. Now come to this attachment of arytenoid. Actually this is important. So it is actually a pyramid shaped, has a apex, has a base, has a muscular process, and has a vocal process. So apex is attached with the corniculate. The base is attached with the cricoid. The vocal process is attached with the vocal ligament, and the muscular process is attached with the intrinsic muscle of larynx. That's you have to know. That's the attachment of adenoid. They are pyramid shape, has a base, has a apex, has a vocal process, and has a muscular process. Now there are some membranes of larynx. They are extrinsic and intrinsic. Now who are the extrinsic membrane that attach? Who are the extrinsic membrane? Who attach the larynx with the outer structure, like who are the example of like cricotracheal or thyrohyoid. So these are the thing. That means thyroid, it's a part of larynx and connecting with some outer part of larynx like hyoid. Cricoid here is connecting with trachea. So cricotracheal, thyrohyoid, hyoepiglottic, they are all example of extrinsic. Then who are the intrinsic? You have to only remember they are the intrinsic, like cricothyroid. Obviously cricothyroid, both are the part of larynx, so obviously cricothyroid is an intrinsic membrane. Other than this, there is a quadrangular ligament and there is someone known as conus elasticus. These three are intrinsic membrane of the larynx: cricothyroid, quadrangular, and conus elasticus. And now one point I want to tell, that above there is quadrangular ligament. The superior margin of quadrangular ligament is known as aryepiglottic fold, which is an inlet of the larynx, and the lower border is known as false vocal cord. And below that you will get this conus elasticus, and the superior boundary of conus elasticus is known as true vocal cord. So that I want to tell, this is conus elasticus, this is quadrangular ligament. The inferior margin of quadrangular ligament is false vocal cord. The superior margin of conus elasticus is true vocal cord, and you all know the space between these two is known as ventricle. So that's it. Now we'll learn a little bit of the anatomy of larynx. Like I am taking the level as the true vocal cord. So this is the true vocal cord. I am taking a coronal section. It's a true vocal cord. That means it is the superior boundary of conus elasticus. Above that, what is present? Above that, the present is false vocal cord. So this violet is false vocal cord, which is a lower boundary of quadrangular ligament. And suppose this is the upper boundary of quadrangular ligament, which is aryepiglottic fold. So at this level, at the level of vocal cord, we divide the larynx into three parts. Upper part is known as supraglottic region. This part is known as glottis, and below this is known as subglottis. So that is important and you have to know. Now the space between these two, the false and true, is known as ventricle. I already told you that. And there is a lateral extension of ventricle known as saccule. So that is a saccule. The lateral extension of ventricle is known as saccule, and this space is ventricle. Above that there is vestibule. So above that there is vestibule. So vestibule, ventricle, and saccule is the lateral extension. So that is the thing you have to know. Now laryngeal inlet. I already told you laryngeal inlet is bounded by someone known as aryepiglottic fold, the superior boundary of the quadrangular ligament. So what is present in the anterior part? What is present in the anterior part of the larynx? The anterior part of the larynx, what will you get? And in the anterior part you will get the epiglottis. In the side you will get the aryepiglottic fold, and in posterior you will get interarytenoid ligament. But that's it. You just have to know this aryepiglottic fold made this the inlet of the larynx. Now who opens the laryngeal inlet and who closes the laryngeal inlet? So the opening of laryngeal inlet is done by thyroepiglotticus, and closure is done by interarytenoid ligament and aryepiglottic. So these are closer. Interetinoid and ariepiglottic, they close the laryngeal inlet where it opens by the thyroepiglotticus. So that's it. That's all you have to know. Now there are someone, the elevators of larynx, and some are the depressor of larynx. Who are the depressor? Just remember them. Otherwise, you will be chaotic. So remember the depressor. They are sternothyroid, sternohyoid, and omohyoid. So just remember that the parts, actually sterno, that means the part that are below the level of hyoid you are seeing, not sternum. This part is below the level of hyoid. So all the part that is below the level of hyoid, they are all the depressor. So the muscle that is below the level of hyoid, actually they are depressor. The sternohyoid, the sternothyroid, and the omohyoid, they are all depressor. And just remember the name of depressors. Now what I want to tell, there is some difference between the child and adult epiglottis. And what is the difference between the child and adult? It's very important. First of all, child has a high up larynx in the C3, C4. Whether in adult it is C5, C6, so you all know. It is omega shaped in case of child. In case of adult, it is leaf shaped. So leaf shaped epiglottis, we all know. So that is the thing. And what are the other thing about that? Like the laryngeal cartilages are soft in case of child and it is hard in case of adult. So these are the thing you may know. Now one thing, what is Rinke space? What is Rinke space? So Rinke space, it's a potential space in the vocal cord. So it is in the vocal cord, the subepithelial region. The subepithelial region is known as Rinke space, and commonly there is some collection in the smoker known as Rinke's edema. We all know about that. Now one point I want to tell. What is this? That is, this is the, I already told, this is the vocal cord. Above this is supraglottis, below this is subglottis. Now what are the lymphatic drainage? The supraglottic lymphatic drainage is by the upper deep cervical lymph node. The infraglottic is by prelaryngeal and pretracheal lymph node. But the vocal cord, the glottic region, has no lymph node. So that is what is important, that you have to remember. And average anterior-posterior length of glottis is 16 millimeter. That you have to know. And now come to the most important thing, the function of larynx. The main function of larynx is protect the airway. Actually protect the airway by the sphincteric action. Other than that, it helps in phonation, respiration like this. But the main function of larynx, it protects the airway. Now there are three sphincter. One is laryngeal inlet, is itself a sphincter, but it's a weak. Then vestibular fold or the false vocal cord, they are also inlet, also a sphincter, and also the true vocal cord, they are also a sphincter, and it is the strongest sphincter of all. So that's it, and that's all. The topic is laryngomalacia. Now what is laryngomalacia? Laryngomalacia is the most common congenital abnormality of larynx. That's actually maximum of us that know this fact, that it is the most common congenital abnormality of larynx associated with stridor. Now it actually presents from birth and normally subsides within 2 years. So obviously it's not a dangerous thing, and the treatment is obviously conservative. So these are the facts about that. And you will see a omega shaped epiglottis. So you will see a omega shaped epiglottis in laryngomalacia. So laryngomalacia is the most common congenital abnormality. From birth, subsides by 2 years. Treatment is mainly conservative, and you will see a omega shaped epiglottis. Now come to stridor. And now stridor can be inspiratory, can be expiratory, or can be biphasic. These are the three types of stridor you can get. Inspiratory stridor is mainly seen in supraglottic. Supraglottic means at the level above the vocal cord. There you will get this supraglottic. In the supraglottic region, you will get the inspiratory stridor. So obviously, you know that laryngomalacia is above glottis. So in case of laryngomalacia, you will get supraglottic stridor. Inspiratory stridor. Also, you will see in case of retropharyngeal abscess, you will also see inspiratory stridor. Now, expiratory stridor, it is seen inside the thorax. That means thoracic trachea obstruction, thoracic trachea, the trachea that is inside the thorax. Or in case of secondary bronchi obstruction, you will see expiratory stridor. And biphasic stridor, it is seen in the glottic, subglottic region. So biphasic stridor is due to the lesion of the glottic and the subglottic region and the trachea that is in the cervical region. So like laryngeal papilloma, vocal cord paralysis, subglottic stenosis, all results in biphasic stridor. That means stridor, inspiratory stridor supraglottic, expiratory stridor intrathoracic trachea, then secondary bronchus and all, and biphasic stridor is due to glottic and subglottic region obstruction. So that's all about stridor. Now there is one thing known as Mayer's cotton grading. Mayer's cotton grading, and this Mayer's cotton grading is the grading for the subglottic stenosis. That you have to know that it is due to the subglottic stenosis. Now subglottic stenosis is the abnormal thickening of cricoid. I have already told you stenosis, the most common site is cricoid, and obviously there may be dyspnea. That is one point, but one thing you have to remember, the cry is absolutely normal. So there will be normal cry along with dyspnea. That you have to remember. Now what is this grading? Grade 1 means less than 50% obstruction. Grade 2 means 51 to 70% obstruction. Grade 3 means 71 to 99% obstruction, and grade 4 means actually you find no lumen. So there is no lumen in this grade 4. So that's this Mayer cotton grading of subglottic stenosis. Now laryngocele is actually the abnormal dilatation of the saccule. I have already told you what is saccule. Saccule is the extension of the space of ventricle. So this is the true vocal cord, this is false vocal cord. The space between these two, that means these spaces are known as ventricle, and the lateral extension of this is known as saccule. And now when this saccule is abnormal, this is known as laryngocele. So this is known as laryngocele, and it extends between the thyroid cartilage and the vertical and the ventricle. And the treatment is, obviously we know the treatment is by actually laser. We can do laser like carbon dioxide and like that. One thing is important, that Bryce sign we actually seen in case of laryngocele. What is Bryce sign? On compressing the swelling, there is a sound. There is a gargling sound in when you press the swelling. This is known as Bryce sign. And the treatment, always remember, in case of laryngeal any abnormality, we actually go for a conservative treatment. We actually don't prefer surgery like that. We can prefer laser, and laser always know ENT, the most common laser used is CO2. That's you all know. Now there is one thing known as laryngeal cyst. Laryngeal cyst appears from the aryepiglottic fold. That you have to remember, and obviously again the treatment is conservative until and unless it's very large, then you can go for the surgery. Otherwise it's not required. Laryngeal papilloma, you all know papilloma is due to HPV 6 and 11. It's why it is occurring in a child, that we already don't know. Actually laryngeal papilloma, then all are congenital. What we are discussing, all are congenital, mainly focusing on laryngomalacia, but laryngeal papilloma, cyst, everything can happen. Actually someone says that it from the maternal genital tract, the HPV infection, it comes to the and forms the laryngeal papilloma, but it's not, we already don't know it. The primary modality in papilloma, in case of papilloma, we prefer surgery. Okay, so surgery we prefer, endoscopic surgical removal. Other than this, CO2 laser we can also use. One thing you have to remember, in case of papilloma, recurrence is very common. So recurrence is very common in case of papilloma. That's all about congenital abnormality of larynx. Now this topic is about vocal cord. So you all know vocal cord is the upper margin of the conus elasticus, and that is the true vocal cord, and the false vocal cord is whom? False vocal cord is the lower margin of the quadrangular ligament. Now before starting that, I want to tell that the nerve supply, that is very important, of larynx, nerve supply of larynx. And you all know that there are two main nerves actually by vagus, but vagus has two branches. One is superior laryngeal nerve and another is recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now recurrent superior laryngeal nerve has two branches, one sensory, one motor. Motor branch is known as external laryngeal nerve and it supplies one muscle known as cricothyroid. The sensory branch is known as internal laryngeal nerve and it gives a sensory supply above vocal fold. Above vocal fold, it gives the sensory supply above vocal cord, above vocal fold, and that is the internal laryngeal nerve. Now this recurrent laryngeal nerve supplies all the intrinsic muscle of larynx except cricothyroid. The motor component of recurrent laryngeal nerve supplies all the intrinsic muscle except cricothyroid, and the sensory component gives a sensory supply below vocal fold. So that's it. That's all about. So vocal fold, above vocal fold sensory supply by the internal laryngeal nerve, branch of superior laryngeal nerve, below recurrent laryngeal nerve. Muscle, intrinsic muscle, all by recurrent laryngeal nerve except cricothyroid. You all know there is only one muscle which is abductor, and that is posterior cricoarytenoid. So you all know this, that posterior cricoarytenoid is the only abductor of larynx. So you all know that. Now the normal position, in neutral position, or the neutral position of vocal cord is cadaveric. That you have to know. So the cadaveric, or from midline, it is 3 millimeter. It is 3 millimeter distance. This is the neutral position of vocal cord. This is known as intermediate or cadaveric position. So that is neutral. When complete paralysis of nerve, there is no nerve is acting, then the position of this, the position of vocal cord is intermediate or cadaveric when there is complete paralysis. So this is known as neutral position. Okay, got it. But in case of only recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy, so the abductor is gone, so it will be slightly adducted, so it will be in the paramedian position. This paramedian position happens when there is only recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy. So that's it. And the midpoint is median, and here you will get a slight abduction and then full abduction. When slight abduction is 7 mm, full abduction is 9 mm. Now recurrent laryngeal nerve injury is most commonly due to surgical trauma during a thyroid surgery, and this the bilateral trauma, bilateral nerve paralysis, the most common cause is surgical trauma. So that is very easy thing that you can know. Other than this vocal cord palsy, other than injury, one major cause, if it said it's the inflammatory cause of vocal cord palsy, then you have to say it's about TB. So TB is one of the major cause of inflammatory vocal cord palsy. Can you tell me which of the nerve actually prone to more injury, left or right recurrent laryngeal nerve? Obviously the left one. The left recurrent laryngeal nerve is more prone to surgery, more prone to trauma. Why? Because it is longer, it loops around the arch of aorta, and it is associated with many structure of mediastinum. So that's why it is very much prone to injury. Whereas the right recurrent laryngeal nerve is loops around the subclavian artery and it is shorter and safe. So right recurrent laryngeal nerve is shorter and safe and loops around subclavian artery. The left recurrent laryngeal nerve loops around arch of aorta, it's longer and it's more prone to injury. So that's I want to tell. Now, if your question asks that the patient has aphonia, that means he can't make sound, patient has aphonia. But the respiration is normal. What you can suggest? As this is a case of aphonia, that means it is not adducted. So obviously recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy is obviously there. Recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy is obviously there. And also when you will say that there will be multiple chest infection along with that, then you can think about aspiration. So what I want to tell, if the question asks the patient has aphonia but respiration is normal, that means it is in the abducted position. It is in abducted position and there will be recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy. Now if they add the history of repeated infection, that means the sensation over the vocal cord has lost and there will be SLN palsy. That means a complete nerve paralysis of the both nerve, superior laryngeal nerve as well as recurrent laryngeal nerve. That is the important thing. Wegener-Grossman theory, it is related with vocal cord palsy. Wegener-Grossman theory. And what this theory told? This theory told us that if there is a recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy, the vocal cord remains in the slightly adducted position, because obviously the abductor has gone, but cricothyroid is an adductor and that is supplied by superior laryngeal nerve. So it takes some adducted position, it in the paramedian position. I already told you that if in only recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy happens, normally it should be in place of neutral position or in the intermediate or cadaveric position, but it actually goes slightly adducted position because of the unopposed action of cricothyroid, which is supplied by superior laryngeal nerve branch known as internal laryngeal or external laryngeal nerve. External laryngeal nerve. You all know cricothyroid is the main tensor of the vocal cord and it produces actually change of pitch. Its change of pitch of sound is produced by this cricothyroid. Now there are 4 types of thyroplasty. It's a very important topic. The thyroplasty, it is of 4 types: type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. And what is the mnemonic? MLSL: medialization, lateralization, shortening, lengthening. When we will do medialization? When there is a palsy. When there is a palsy, we will do medialization because it is remain in the neutral state. In a complete paralysis, it is in the neutral state. So we do a medialization in case of a complete paralysis. Complete paralysis means both SLN and RLN are gone. Only RLN if gone, then it is in the median position, paramedian position, because of the unopposed action of cricothyroid. But when complete paralysis happens, that means SLN, RLN both are gone, so it remains in the neutral or cadaveric or intermediate position, and then we do medialization. When we do lateralization, when there is an RLN palsy. Only RLN palsy, it seems to the median side, so there will be problem in respiration. So we do lateralization in case of recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy. When we do shortening, to reduce pitch, we do shortening, and to increase pitch, we do lengthening. So that is the thing, because shortening relaxes the vocal cord and lengthening tightens the vocal cord. So that's all about your. The topic is some speech disorder. The first I want to tell about dysphonia plica ventricularis. Here the false vocal cord or the vestibular fold produces the sound, and obviously if the false vocal cord produces the sound, it will be low pitched. It will be low pitched sound. So the treatment is voice therapy and counseling. That's all about dystonia plica ventricularis. Come to the next one, known as spasmodic dysphonia. It is associated with some neurological abnormality. Now spasmodic dysphonia can be adductor dysphonia or can be abductor dysphonia. In adductor dysphonia, the adductor muscle goes into spasm. So the if the adductor muscle goes into spasm, the vocal cord will remain in the medial position, in the median position, as the adductor muscle goes into spasm. It is obviously, I already told you, it is associated with neurological symptoms like Parkinsonism, pseudobulbar palsy, multiple sclerosis, tardive dyskinesia, ALS, like that. In the treatment, we will give the botulinum toxin, obviously to relax. And in abductor spasm, the abductor muscle goes in spasm and vocal cord remains in the lateral position, because the abductor is the only one, posterior cricoid, and if it goes in spasm, more contraction, then the vocal cord remains in the lateral position. So we do again a botulinum toxin we give, but if it's failed, then we do a thyroplasty. So thyroplasty is medialization, and medialization is type 1 thyroplasty we can do. So that's all about. Now functional dysphonia or functional aphonia. It is a functional. Functional means functional. It is seen in female of 15 to 30 year old. So it's a teenager female, mainly seen in the teenage group of the female, and this is functional dysphonia. Reassure the patient that is the only treatment. Now one thing known as puberphonia. Puberphonia is seen in male, specifically emotionally unstable male. Emotionally unstable adolescent male, you will see this puberphonia, where he is continue to speak like his pre-pubertal speech. He is in puberty, but still he is talking, he is speaking like a pre-pubertal speech. So that is known as puberphonia. To identify his puberphonia or some normal thing, we do a test known as Gartzman pressure test. So Gartzman pressure test is done in case of puberphonia to detect it. What we do in this test, we press the thyroid prominence in a backward and downward direction, and it actually relax the cord and low tone the voice, and low tone voice can be produced. So we actually press the thyroid prominence backward and downward. That is the test, Gartzman procedure, done in case of puberphonia. Now there is one thing known as phonosthenia. Phonosthenia is a weakness of voice. It is a weakness of voice due to fatigue in the laryngeal muscle. So there will be fatigue in the laryngeal muscle, and for this phonosthenia occurs. So actually phonosthenia leads to something known as phonatory gap, and the glottis looks like a keyhole. So you will see a keyhole glottis. So that is the important point about phonosthenia, where you will get a keyhole glottis and a phonation gap. And phonosthenia is what? It is the weakening of the voice due to laryngeal muscle spasm. Now there are some vocal cord sulcus, like true sulcus and false sulcus. Who are the true sulcus? Sulcus vocalis or sulcus virgitio. Now sulcus vocalis, it is due to epidermal cyst, and sulcus virgitio, it's a developmental defect, it's a congenital defect, and we do actually phonosurgery, and we actually break the fibrous band beneath that. And false sulcus, it is actually a depression in the mucosa of the cord. It is a depression in the mucosa of the cord, and it is due to chronic irritation of laryngopharyngeal reflux. It is the chronic irritation by the laryngopharyngeal sulcus, and there is a depression in the mucosa of the cord, and that is known as false sulcus. Rhinolalia clausa, you all know, which is known as actually the hyponasality or lack of nasal resonance, and it is seen in the blockage of nose or a closed nasopharynx or blockage of nasopharynx, like that. So in case of nasal polyp, nasal growth, in case of nasopharyngeal mass, where the nasopharynx get obstructed or the nose gets obstructed, you will get this rhinolalia clausa. And you all know rhinolalia aperta or hypernasality, it is hypo, and rhinolalia aperta, which is known as hypernasality, it is seen in case of cleft palate. So it is seen in case of cleft palate. So that's it. That's all about. The last topic of larynx will be laryngeal neoplasm. So first I want to tell laryngeal cancer. we mainly focus in the laryngeal cancer because we already told about the benign condition, that is laryngeal papilloma caused by HPV 6 and 11 earlier in the congenital abnormality. Here we mainly focus in the cancer. The cancer is more commonly in male, approximately 10 times more than female. That is the first thing. Risk factor are tobacco and alcohol. It is squamous mainly, and glottis is the most common region, followed by supraglottis and followed by subglottis. So that is the order of laryngeal cancer. Glottis is the most common site. Now the next thing I want to tell, glottic cancer is the most common, and you all know most common thing actually is good, it's not very bad. And glottic cancer is why it's actually good, because hoarseness is seen very early in case of glottic cancer. So a patient can know he has some hoarseness, so he go to the doctor, and there will be an early diagnosis of the cancer. In case of supra and subglottic, there will be late presentation of hoarseness, so patient will present late to the doctor. So that's the problem. The prognosis of supraglottic and subglottic cancer is a bad prognosis. The glottic cancer has a good prognosis because the hoarseness is early in presentation. Why this hoarseness happens? It has many causes, like infiltration of the thyroarytenoid muscle, recurrent laryngeal nerve involvement, cricoarytenoid fixation. So there can be lots of cause like this. Now there are some lymph node involvement. In case of supraglottic and subglottic, there are lymph node involvement, but in case of glottic, there is no lymph node involvement, because I already told you earlier, in the glottic region there is no lymph node. In the supraglottic there is lymph node, in the subglottic there is lymph node, but in glottic there is no lymph node. So that is the one thing I want to tell. Now from supraglottic region, in a case of supraglottic cancer, the most common site is epiglottis, followed by false vocal cord, followed by aryepiglottic fold. So epiglottis is the most common site, and obviously there will be nodal metastasis, and nodal metastasis like the upper and middle jugular node, level 2, level 3. Level 2, level 3 node are mainly. It is actually silent, and hoarseness is a late presentation, so actually prognosis is poor. And we know obviously there is surgery, there is radiotherapy, there is laser, and we all know laser is CO2 is used in case of ENT. Now radiotherapy is used in case of two area, when there is a cancer of vocal cord without impairment of its mobility. That means if there is a vocal cord cancer, that means a glottic cancer without mobility abnormal, that means with normal mobility, we do radiotherapy. And in case of superficial exophytic lesion, we also give radiotherapy. So these two conditions we give radiotherapy. Radiotherapy actually doesn't good for subglottic extension, nodal mets, cartilage invasion. There this radiotherapy is not good. So that is the thing. In case of cancer, laryngeal cancer, we do high tracheostomy. In case of normal foreign body or head injury, in case of unconscious patient, we do a mid tracheostomy in the second and third tracheal ring. But in case of laryngeal cancer, we do a high tracheostomy, and high tracheostomy mean in the first tracheal ring we do an incision. So that is the thing. Now what I want to tell, that about the last point, I want to finish it like that total laryngectomy is done sometime, like in case of T4 lesion, in case of thyroid or cricoid cartilage invasion, lesion in the posterior commissure, in case of transglottic cancer with cord fixation. In these 4 cases, we do a total laryngectomy. In case of T4, in case of thyroid cartilage invasion, in case of posterior commissure involvement, in case of transglottic cancer. Also, if there is a radiotherapy failed and conservative therapy failed, we also do your total laryngectomy. That's all about laryngeal neoplasm, and that's all about larynx. Thank you.